Welcome to the deep dive. We unpack complex scenarios here, looking for those actionable insights. Today, we're dissecting a challenge, well, a nightmare really, that many businesses face, the project that just goes completely off the rails. Over budget, way behind schedule, and maybe worst of all, failing users. Our focus today is a real deep dive into bridging the gap, how XYZ Fintech rescued a failing product through effective requirement gathering.
So picture this. XYZ Fintech. They're a dynamic player in financial technology, right? And they set out with this really ambitious goal. They wanted to build a mobile personal finance app, like a comprehensive tool to integrate bank accounts, analyze your spending, recommend saving strategies. Sounds like a winner, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds great on paper. And our mission today, as we kind of explore this business case, is to understand not just where XYZ Fintech stumbled, which they definitely did, but crucially, how they managed to turn it around. We're here to extract the key lessons about, well, the power of doing your homework, that thorough strategic preparation. Okay, so let's unpack where things really went wrong at the start. Our sources show XYZ Fintech basically just jumped into development, like almost zero business analysis beforehand.
Yeah.
The first requirements. Apparently, they came only from upper management. They completely skip talking to actual users or, frankly, anyone else who might have had a stake in this.
That just begs the question, doesn't it? What happens when you build something without really, truly understanding who you're building it for? And what's fascinating, or maybe alarming here, is how fast the consequences hit. After only 4 months of development, the first user beta testing, it was a complete disaster. The features just weren't clicking. They weren't lined up with what users actually expected or, really needed day to day.
Right. And the impact wasn't just, oh, users are unhappy. Well, that's bad enough. The whole project just spiraled. It went over budget by a staggering 30%, and slipped its timeline by 2 whole months. The development team apparently was constantly confused about key functions, which led to this endless stream of change requests right in the middle of sprints. Sounds like chaos, a total meltdown.
A classic death spiral, absolutely. You see it happen.
Okay, but here's where the story pivots. Faced with this complete failure, the company actually made a really smart move. They brought in a business analyst. Her name was Ananya, and she had a strong background specifically in fintech products. Her mission, rescue the project.
Exactly. And Ananya's arrival wasn't just about adding another person. It signaled a fundamental shift in their whole strategy. That old build fast, fix later idea, gone. Replaced by understand first, then build. And this really highlights a critical role, one that's often overlooked, I think, the business analyst. They're the ones aligning the tech solution with the actual business goals and, crucially, user needs.
So what did Ananya actually do? How did she start to turn this massive ship around? Our sources detail this incredibly meticulous requirement gathering process, almost forensic, you could say. It started with stakeholder identification and mapping. She didn't just guess who mattered. She systematically ID'd all the critical stakeholders. We're talking end users, developers, UI/UX designers, marketing, compliance folks, even customer service reps. That's a really comprehensive list. No stone unturned, seemingly.
Yeah, and if you think about the bigger picture, identifying such a diverse group is just essential. It makes sure all the different perspectives are considered. It prevents that kind of narrow management-only viewpoint that, well, causes the initial problems in the first place. Then Ananya used a whole range of specific techniques, each one picked for a reason. She conducted interviews, and crucially, not just with the internal managers. She talked directly with bank customers, the end users, and with customer support teams to get those raw, unvarnished insights.
So she went straight to the source. Not just internal assumptions, she talked to actual bank customers.
Precisely. And that direct feedback, you can bet, immediately challenged some of those early management ideas. She also facilitated workshops. These were cross-functional meetings, bringing different departments together to align on goals. And to get broader feedback on desired features, she used surveys, sent out strategically to a wider user base. Plus, rigorous document analysis. She reviewed everything, compliance rules, regulatory docs, making sure the app would meet all the necessary legal and industry standards. You can't skip that in fintech.
No way. And she didn't just collect data, right? She made it usable for the dev team, made it tangible.
Exactly right. To make those user needs feel real, she created user personas. These weren't just descriptions. They represented realistic customer types. It gave the team an empathy tool, basically. They could ask, okay, how would elderly Ellen handle this login? Or what does budget-savvy Ben really want here? And finally, use cases and user stories, mapped out meticulously, detailing real-life scenarios of how people would actually interact with the app. These little stories, they exposed critical gaps and potential friction points before anyone wrote more code.
And she used specific tools to manage all this, right? It wasn't just conversations in a vacuum. Our sources mention JIRA for tracking requirements, Balsamic for wireframes, those low-fidelity sketches people could react to visually, Miro for the stakeholder workshops, makes sense, and Confluence for documenting everything. It really shows that effective analysis isn't just talking. It's about structured processes and having the right tools for the job.
Absolutely. Structure brings clarity.
So after all that digging, what did Ananya find? What were the big aha moments? This methodical approach led to some, well, frankly surprising discoveries, critical ones. For example, get this, 68% of users wanted spending categorization, a feature completely missed in the first build, and 52% over half asked for bill reminders, also totally absent from version 1. I mean, imagine building a whole finance app and missing two of the most basic, most requested features.
It's pretty stark, isn't it? It really shows that huge disconnect between what they thought users wanted, those internal assumptions, and what people actually needed. But it wasn't just about features people wanted. The compliance team, they flagged some major issues too. Missing data encryption details?
Yeah.
That's a massive regulatory oversight, could have been disastrous. And the UX team, they pointed out the logging flow was way too complex, especially for older users. Big questions about accessibility and just basic usability that were completely missed before.
Wow. So with all these revelations piling up, Ananya developed this revised requirements document. It covered both the business requirements, the BRD, what the business needed, and the functional requirements, the FRD, how the app would actually do it. This new document had clear business goals, but this time they were directly tied to the validated user needs. It included a prioritized feature list using that Moscow method you hear about, must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, won't-haves, really forces you to focus.
Yeah, prioritization is key. You can't do everything at once.
And a traceability matrix for every requirement so you could track everything back. And crucially, this document got sign-off from all the stakeholders before they started developing again. A complete overhaul of that first flawed approach.
That sign-off step is so important. It ensures everyone is on the same page before you invest more time and money.
Okay, so the moment of truth. What did all this mean for XYZ Fintech? What were the results after they implemented these revised, properly vetted requirements? This is where the aha moment really lands, I think.
Well, let's just look at the numbers from the source. They really tell the story. User satisfaction. Before Ananya, it was, what, a dismal 40%?
Yeah, pretty bad.
After this thorough requirement gathering, it soared to 85%. That's a huge jump. Rework requests. Initially, they were sky high, causing endless delays and frustration. Post-analysis, minimal, almost none. Development timeline. What was once constantly slipping went back to being perfectly on schedule.
And the budget, that 30% overrun nightmare.
Gone. The project actually came in under 5% of the revised budget. Under. That's just a massive turnaround. It saved them a fortune, not to mention time and, honestly, their reputation.
Those numbers just paint such a clear picture, don't they? Investing that time up front in analysis, in really understanding your audience. It saves so much pain, money, and time down the line. So let's distill this. This case study offers some really profound lessons, and they go way beyond just software, I think. First off, it makes it crystal clear. Skipping or rushing requirement gathering. It doesn't save time. It just delays the inevitable pain and multiplies the cost. It creates this cycle of inefficiency based on, well, assumption blindness.
Yeah, and this brings up a really important question for you, the listener. How often, maybe in our own work, do we feel that pressure, that urge to just rush to a solution without fully grasping the core problem we're trying to solve? The XYZ Fintech story really highlights how critical that business analyst role is. Often underestimated, I'd say. They're the bridge builders, right? They uncover those blind spots and make sure the technology actually serves a real purpose.
Absolutely. And maybe the biggest takeaway here. Real user insights. They're not just a nice to have. They're absolutely fundamental, non-negotiable, really. They drive adoption. They drive success. Without truly understanding the user, building with that empathy, even the cleverest tech can just fall flat. So we've seen how this deep dive into identification, into collaboration, literally rescued a failing product. The transformation at XYZ Fintech is just such a powerful reminder. Sometimes slowing down, taking the time to genuinely understand, that's actually the fastest and certainly the most cost-effective way to succeed.
And this isn't just about building apps, is it? Think about any complex project, any new initiative you might be involved in, whatever your field. This case really pushes us to ask, What other common pitfalls, maybe in marketing or operations or, anywhere, could be avoided by applying these same principles? Thorough stakeholder mapping, meticulous requirement gathering. Where might your own organization be running on assumptions that haven't really been checked?
Yeah, how could you apply this kind of holistic approach in your own work, even if it's not software? How do you make sure your next big project aligns perfectly with what people actually need, not just what you think they need? Definitely something to keep in mind as you tackle your own challenges.